Alright, let me turn up my mic just a little bit. I was recording something else yesterday, so it was, I had to change the Ween Watch.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that at some point. Oh.
I don't know about that. Well, you might not want to. You would have to watch fucking Judy Moody.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll watch...
And that's the fucking worst.
I don't know if I'll watch the movie, but I might listen to the commentary while I do stuff.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to start doing that more.
I feel it. We need to do... while I'm still out of work, we should do some of those, like, public domain movies like we were talking about. Yeah,
I was just looking at a big list of all the public domain films, trying to figure out what the best one we should do is.
Yeah, if you have any ideas, just feel free to message me one day, and I'm down to do it.
Cool. Anyway, welcome back to the good old Screen Weens podcast.
Yeah.
Woo!
49.
49. The one before the big 50.
Does 50 fall on the 1 year that we've been doing this, or
maybe?
Because I know we're like 2 episodes off, so that would I think.
Let me checkaroo. Episode 1 came out. No, it came out July 15th.
No, so we're almost there.
Yeah. So, yeah, it'll come out, because episode 50 will come out the 29th, so pretty close, though.
Okay.
Because we had all those extra recorded episodes.
Oh,
but when we recorded the first one, yes, it should have been about this time.
Okay.
So, yeah, woo!
Sweet. Yeah,
so today we're talking about one of my favorite directors, Mr. Bong Joon-ho, and 2 of his big movies, which is Memories of Murder, which was his second movie, which I can never get over.
Yeah.
And Mother, the one with Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, and Mother was, probably his 5th or 6th movie? Let me see.
No, he's only made, I think, 6.
Has he?
It should have been his 4th, I think, because it was Barking Dogs, it was Memories of Murder, then it should have been The Host, and then Mother.
Ah, yes. Let's see.
Let me make sure.
Yeah, that's right. And then Snowpiercer.
He did do fucking Tokyo in between, which was an anthology film with Michael Gondry and
yeah. I've been meaning to watch that one.
Leos Carras. Yeah, me too. I've heard it's good. So he did that in between.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only movie I really need to watch from him. There's a couple short films from him that I'm trying to track down still, but
I guess the only one I need to see now out of his feature films is Barking Dogs Never Bite.
It's good movie. Not amazing, but I enjoyed it. Yeah. It's funny because the jump in quality between Barking Dogs and Memories of Murder is crazy.
Yeah, he had 3 straight years of training afterwards.
And then he just put out banger after banger for the rest of his fucking career, apparently.
Yeah. I'd say so.
I'm excited to see his next movie that comes out that he's making. He wants to make a horror movie. That'll be fun.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm excited for that. But yeah, what have you been up to this week?
I started playing Spider-Man for the PS4 again.
Oh, nice.
Because I've beaten it. I beat it a year and a half ago when I first got it.
Yeah.
I played it straight until I beat it. But I never finished it 100%. So I went back through. I was doing the Taskmaster stuff and doing the research stations. So pretty much all I have to do left in the game is just start swinging around finding random crimes so I can 100% the map. And then once I do that, I'll probably do a New Game Plus because I fucking love that game.
Yeah, I was in a similar situation to you about half a year ago, where I had played it when it came out, and then like a few months ago I was playing through it, trying to 100% it, and I ended up like putting it down before I went on a trip somewhere, but I need to like pick it back up, because I left off like right at the spot where spoiler, where Miles Morales' dad is about to die, like that city hall thing that he does where that whole thing happens. That's like right before where I stopped playing, so I just need to pick up from there. But yeah, good game. I'm excited to play the sequel, but I'm not excited to buy a PS5 to play it.
I mean, I'm excited for the PS5 because it looks dope. Well, I don't know. I don't really like the design, but its lineup looks pretty dope.
Yeah, it's got a pretty decent lineup. I hate console exclusive stuff. I wish it was all just...
Yeah, no, I get that.
Across the board,
I would
but
get that.
I get it, and I will probably pick it up and play it. Whether I play it at launch or whether I wait a little bit for the price to drop, we'll see. But
yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Anything else you did this week besides that?
Let's see. The Letterboxd Discord I'm in. A bunch of people are like, we're going to watch all the James Bond movies. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And then I watched Dr. No and fucking hated it.
Yeah, I've seen like the first one that Sean Connery was in.
Yeah, it's Dr. No.
Okay, yeah. I wasn't
He was the first Bond.
Okay, I wasn't sure if he was the first or second. I remember feeling extremely underwhelmed and being like, ugh, I don't know if I can watch all of these.
But I do want to... I still have... That's the first Bond movie I've, like, sat all the way through. And I've heard that the second and third are, like, really good.
Okay.
So, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do it. I'm, like, a day behind because they just started a couple days ago. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. I've been trying to fill out this list on Letterboxd of, like, the top 100 films rated, by, like, black directors, so I've been filling out that list, so I watched a bunch of random stuff, like the Tales from the Crypt movie, Demon Knight.
Yeah.
That was fucking epic. I watched The Last Dragon. That's a good movie.
Yeah, I've seen the poster for it. I haven't watched it, though.
That's a fun-ass movie.
Huh.
Very fun. Very goofy.
Okay.
And then I watched, like, The Great Debaters and Coach Carter, which I felt similarly about.
Yeah, I haven't seen The Great Debaters. I've seen, like, clips from it, because when I was in, like, speech class in the 7th grade, they showed us, like, clips from it.
That's exactly... I talk about that in my review. I realized once I started watching it, I'm like, I've seen this movie.
Oh, nice.
In high school. And I talk about, this is like one of those movies that's destined to play in front of high school students.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or I guess in this case, 7th grade students.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty cool class. I enjoyed it.
And then, what else did I do? Yeah, I watched some random shitty movies, but what's new?
Oh, fair.
I did watch... Did I say I watched The King of Staten Island last week?
I don't remember.
The Pete Davidson movie? I watched it, like, the day we recorded. I just don't remember if I watched it before or after we recorded. Anyway, that movie's dope.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say that in case I did talk about it last week.
Huh. Yeah, I don't recall if you brought it up or not.
Which is... Actually, I don't think I did. I'm not a super huge fan of Judd Apatow as, like, a director. At least from the 2 movies I've seen from him before. I think he's better as, like, a producer. Most of his producing stuff I've liked.
Yeah.
But, I was surprised. I really liked that one. King of Staten Island. Really good.
Huh.
I do want to see Funny People. I've heard good things about Funny People.
Yeah, I remember liking Funny People. A lot of people, and I can see this. I haven't watched the movie in years, but like the general consensus is like the second half is not as good as the first half of the movie. Yeah, but it's still worth checking out. I remember really enjoying it, but I need to give it a rewatch one of these days. Yeah.
Yep, so that's mostly what I've been up to. And then we just finished season 2 of Lost yesterday, and, I enjoyed it, but season 1's killer, and season 2, its first half, is pretty middling. The second half, is good. I like the second half of season 2 a lot, but the first half, I was not a fan of most of it.
Oh, okay. Like, just kind of like boring episodes?
I just think there are a lot of characters in Lost that I just don't think are well written. And especially most of the women in the show, it just feels like nobody knows how to write a woman unless she's, like, attached to something. Like, she needs to have, like, a man in her life or, like, a child or something.
Oh, gross.
And if they're not surrounded by that, they can't make a scene. They can't make a scene about them.
Huh.
So it's just kind of obnoxious. And then there are random, like, extra characters that show up that I don't think should be there. I think the cast is just, I guess, a little too big.
I feel it.
Some of the early stuff in season 2 is supposed to have, like, an emotional impact, but it's, like, so poorly executed, I just didn't care at all. But, like, damn, the second half is so good. So, it's still a good season, but
just has a slow start.
They just feel like completely different shows.
Huh. Yeah, that does sound like...
But season 3, I have friends that like all of Lost, and then I have friends who only like the first 3 seasons of Lost.
Okay.
Because after season 3 was when, like, the writer's strike happened, and, like, the show took a notable dip in quality.
Okay.
Which happened to Heroes as well.
Yeah, no, that writer's strike, if you're talking about, like, the one, it was, like, what, the late 2000s when it happened? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. That really had an impact on the industry. Like, the fact that you can find so many, like, kind of half-assed movies, and you look into it, and it's like, oh, the writer's strike was going on, no wonder. But, I mean, good for them, standing up for themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it looks like it was like 2007 to 2008. Obviously, it wasn't really affecting me at the time because I was fucking 10.
Yeah.
But looking back on it now, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, huh.
There are some things that, like... Imagine what would happen if Breaking Bad had started, like, a year earlier. I haven't watched Breaking Bad, but the writer's strike, like, affected... I think 2 episodes weren't made for Breaking Bad because of the writer's strike. But if it had happened, like, beforehand, fuck, that show might have just gone completely off the rails and just sucked.
No, perhaps, yeah.
Because there are a lot of, like, shows that just, like, got super fucked because of it. Which, it's like, good.
Yeah.
Give people more money.
Yeah, I feel it. It's, sacrifices we have to make for the greater good, I guess.
Yeah, I do not care in the as much as I love movies and shows and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just sit here and be, like, complain about somebody striking for, like, more money or, like, wanting better rights. Like, that's...
Yeah, absolutely
I'm not that obnoxious of a person.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, like, if most of those shows had, like, big group writers, then it's not as big of an issue for me if that's the case, because it's, like, I mean, I'm not going to say it's not, like, personal to the writers, but it's obviously, like, more of a manufactured product by, like, a group of writers than it is, like, I guess it's a case-by-case basis. I don't want to make such a general statement like that, but, yeah, I don't know. good for them. I'm glad that they went on strike and got their money, and it gives an interesting bit of history to look back on.
True. Very true.
But, yeah. My week has been pretty uneventful. I pretty much just, I played and I beat the first Red Dead Redemption. Good game. I wish I had done... I kind of cheated a bit. Not really, but, like, I just kind of did, like, the main story stuff and skipped a lot of the side stuff this time around, because I was like, oh, I want to beat this. I just want to know what happens, and I felt like I had missed out on some of the kind of, like, extra bits of character that's sprinkled out through the side missions, but, I enjoyed it. I look forward to playing Undead Nightmare probably some point later. Whether this week or next week. I don't know. I'm taking a bit of a break, though. And then I also read The Metamorphose by Franz Kafka.
Oh, shit. How was it?
It's depressing. Depressing.
Yeah, I've heard.
It's got a kind of funny beginning. Like, it starts off kind of in this, like, weird, funny scenario. To anyone who doesn't know the basic premise of the book, it's about, like, a traveling salesman who wakes up in bed one morning and he's just, like, a giant bug. And it's kind of about his life from that point on. And, yeah, it's a very depressing book. There's a movie adaptation of it that came out a couple years ago. Don't watch the trailer, because I watched the trailer for it. I'm like, holy shit, this gives away, like, the entire fucking book. But I'm gonna watch that adaptation and see how well it is.
What's the movie called?
I think it's just called The Metamorphose. It came out like 2008, I think. Let me see.
Metamorphosis.
2018, my bad. Or 2012, depending on... I'm seeing different dates here. But,
oh, just Metamorphosis, that's why.
Yeah. Oh, fuck, it is Metamorphosis. I feel like an asshole. I've been calling it the Metamorphose this entire time.
That's okay. That's okay. Have you heard anything good about the movie adaptation, or?
I haven't heard, like, anything, but based off the trailer, it looks pretty decent. It looks like it follows the events, and the bug looks weird as fuck in the movie. They gave him, like, kind of like a human-esque face that I saw from the trailer, so he kind of looks like, the fucking, like, I haven't watched, A Bug's Life in a really long time, but kind of looks like Kevin Spacey in that movie.
Oh.
Like, isn't he like, what is he in that movie?
Isn't he a grasshopper?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's named Hopper.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that, but, like, in a realistic setting, so it's kind of funny.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of why I want to watch it. I want to see the bug in all of its glory, but, yeah.
Beautiful.
Pretty decent book. It's short. It's only, like, 55 pages, so...
Yeah, I might just go and read it after this. Because now I'm like, I love bugs.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty
Except
good story.
I don't really like bugs.
But yeah, that was pretty much my week for the most part. Other than that, I've pretty much just been taking it easy. I read a little bit more of Catch-22. I'm reading that one, but just kind of slowly. But yeah, it's pretty much been my week.
I don't know if you saw, but Ian Holm died yesterday.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah, that's very unfortunate, very sad. Yeah, I don't know anything else he was in besides Lord of the Rings, but sad nonetheless. But
theaters are reopening soon, like in the next couple weeks.
Oh boy, I'm sure that'll be fun. Yeah. I don't really have anything I want to see other than Dune so far. And
I mean, I want to see Tenet, and I would prefer to see it in a theater.
I do want to see that.
That's like the big first release that comes out next month.
I hope they just do a... Like, I'd pay a $20 rental for that one, probably. There aren't many movies I would do the $20 rental for, like the home release, but I feel like that would be one of them.
I most likely just won't go to the theater, even though I have my fucking movie pass thing, but like, it depends on their precautions. I know most places are being like, I think theaters are at like 30 to 50% capacity at most. And I just want to know if masks are required, because if they aren't, I'm just like, well, I'm not going.
Yeah, I don't imagine they will be, seeing how they, like, make most of their cash off concessions. So they're gonna. Well, I mean, like, even the idea of like, if you're not actively eating, you need to be wearing your mask would be one thing. Yeah,
and I know, like, there are some places where it's like you have to wear a mask wherever you go. So we shall see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we have any questions today.
What?
Yeah.
Pierre failed us.
Pierre forgot. I could go see if he's up.
I mean, do whatever you want to do.
No questions today.
All right.
We're just gonna jump straight in the fucking movie.
All right. Starting with Memories of Murder, I presume.
Memories of Murder. This is one of the greatest movies ever made, and I know I say that a lot, but this time I'm for real.
Yeah, I concur. This movie is a fucking masterpiece.
This time around, I took so many fucking screenshots of this movie. It's so pretty.
Yeah, I love this movie, but I don't know if I should recommend it to as many people as I do, because as I was watching it, because I always think of, like, I mean, obviously it's a dark movie, it's centered around, like, a serial killer, but I always think, because this movie has a sense of humor about it, and that's one of the things I really like about it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much true for all of Bong Joon-ho's movies.
Yeah. But this movie in particular, like, I could see, like, just people not being able to stomach some of the stuff in this movie. Like, I forgot about, like, the fruit part until we got to it. Yep. And I was like, oh, no, I forgot about this part. Oh, that part is so fucking dark and morbid.
And, like, yeah, and the comedy, like, drops.
It deteriorates throughout the film.
Yeah. Like, near, like, the halfway point. And I think that's a thing that works so much to the advantage of the film.
Yeah. It definitely,
it makes everything feel... It puts you in the mind of, like, Song Kang-ho's character, pretty much. Yeah.
Because, well, I guess if you want to just jump into it. So, his character is, I think you pronounce it Park Do-man? Or Park Do-man? It's like...
It's either Do or Do-man.
Yeah.
Do-man?
I'm just going to call him Park for the majority of the episode, probably.
Detective Park.
But he's riding on a tractor to this field where there's, like, a body and this, like, kind of drainage pipe thing. And there's just a bunch of, like, local children about. They're just, like, playing in the field. They're playing with, evidence. They find, like, the undergarments.
Yeah.
Of the person that's in the drainage pipe. And there's the one kid who's, like, copying him when he's, like, yelling at the other kids. And he kind of looks at him for a moment with, like, kind of, like, approval, like, this might be a good kid. But then he kind of, like, starts, like, making fun of the expression he has on his face. And he quickly kind of, like, you can see that he quickly kind of changes his mind. He's like, get out of here, kid. But yeah, so he interrogates some people, takes their photos. Like, it's literally, like, at his desk, he'll just, like, pull out, like, a little Polaroid camera, take a picture of, like, the person and, like, slap it in this, like, notebook that he's got. And then he heads to the scene or the second crime scene, because another body was found. And this time it's in, like, this field. And there's just, like, a ton of people about. There's no, like, regard for preserving the crime scene. Like, there's already, like, detectives who have, like, walked all over. And they're, like... people keep, like, getting out of their car, and as they're trying to, like, walk down onto the field, they keep, like, slipping down the hill.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like one of the peak moments of comedy. Like, they're just slipping around. Song Kang-ho is just, like, doesn't know what the fuck to do. He's like, where are they?
He's like, God damn it, where's the forensics team? Come on, what's going on? Hey, get away from here. What's all these people? And then there's, like, he finds a footprint, and he's like, all right, this is it. And he kind of, like, circles it with a stick.
Footprint.
And then there's, like, this guy going by on a, like, tractor or plow or something. I don't know, some piece of farm equipment. And he basically, like, ignores Park as he's, like, screaming out. He's like, whoa, stop. But he just runs over the footprint. And it's like, they lost the shred of evidence that they had.
Yeah.
So he goes, and he has, like, a doctor friend who he, like, kind of fools around with, and she, like, gives him medical treatment on the down low. She gives him, like, a flu shot and is, like, cleaning his ears out when she tells him about this kid named Gwangju. I think that's how you pronounce it. And basically, he's a kid who was seen following the victim. So he, like, goes to the arcade that he's at and arrests him.
Yeah. And it's very obvious at this point that Gwangju has a pretty severe, like, mental disability.
Yeah. And I don't know about this. I can only infer this from the two back-to-back Bong Joon-ho murder movies we watched. But is it common in South Korea for them to, like, point the finger at disabled people? Because
I mean, this is the same thing. I think that, like, we were talking about the similarities between Mother and poetry, but in the same thing, this has both this and Mother have pretty similar aspects to, like, Oasis.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yeah, it just seems like, I don't know if it's common, but I think ableism, like, everywhere is just very big.
Yeah.
And Bong Joon-ho and fucking, what's that guy's name?
Lee Chang-dong.
Lee Chang-dong. They fucking hate those. They fucking hate people that are ableist. They'll beat you up. If you're mean to someone who has a disability, you will find yourself in an alley being beaten up by Bong Joon-ho and Lee Chang-dong. I
mean, I don't want to make fun of disabled people, but that sounds like a pretty fun result. I wouldn't mind getting beat up by those two in an alley. But, yeah, so he arrests him, and then they take him to the interrogation room, and we see Cho, who is, like, his partner. He kind of plays the bad cop. He's got, like, this, what would you call that? It kind of looks like a hairnet.
I just want to make sure that we're completely clear before we go any further.
Oh, okay.
Every cop in this is a bad cop.
Oh, absolutely. Like, the one that shows...
Obviously, there are levels, but yeah. I want to say something that this movie reminds me of Scenes from a Marriage, in that Scenes from a Marriage is about showing you every aspect of a marriage, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, like every single type of marriage. And I feel like this movie is trying to show you every single type of cop, but they're all bad.
I feel it. Yeah, because jumping ahead a bit here, we do get, like, a more grounded cop who's seemingly, like, like, he likes to stick closer to the book. He doesn't embrace the police brutality against, like, some of the victims they bring in, but he doesn't really, like, stand up against it. Like,
obviously he's more competent, like, he's smarter, but, like, he has his own downward spiral as well.
He does, as the film
I think
goes
he's
on.
supposed to, like, represent cops that have good intentions when joining, but they just end up falling into that same, like, pit.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you've got the kind of opposite effect for,
Song Kang-ho's character.
Yeah, they kind of, like, swap characteristics as the film goes on.
I love this movie.
Yeah. God, it's all perfectly just summed up in that fucking climax scene, but we'll get to that.
That's literally, I think it's the greatest scene I could possibly think of. It's like my favorite scene I've ever seen. I watched it like 5 times. I only watched this movie one more time for the podcast, but I just kept rewinding and watching that scene again.
Yeah, no, it's such a fucking good, well executed just scene that perfectly kind of pops, you know, where everything had been like building to so far in this movie. But we'll get to it when we get to it.
Oh, we never mentioned it, but it's sort of really important. This movie is based on real life events. Of this famous South Korean serial killer that was never caught until last year when he was.
Yes, and this film is obviously like a fictional depiction of like this serial killer. Like these detectives never specifically existed, and like I don't know if like the person in the film ever existed or if it's someone they made up just for the sake of the movie, like the person who they think is the killer. Spoiler alert if that is what they were going for, or I guess I won't get to that, but anyway, let's keep going forward. Anyway, yeah, so he's got his partner like Cho, and he's got like this weird like hairnet kind of thing that he uses to cover up like one of his boots that he basically uses to kick suspects. Yeah, it's very, very not good, but they play good cop, bad cop with him. They're trying
more like bad cop, worse cop.
Yeah, yeah. So let's see. After that, basically Park is... Oh, my notes are... What the fuck? I wrote that weird. Anyway, so while this is going on, a detective from Seoul named... Oh, what is his name? Seo? Is that how you pronounce it?
Seo, I think?
Yeah, so, basically, a detective from Seoul has, like, volunteered to help with the case, and the first time we see him, he's kind of creepily following a woman. Like, I don't blame her for reacting the way she did, because he kind of, like...
Yeah, but he's like, hey, can you help me? And she, like, why are you following me?
Yeah.
Why are you following me?
He's like, and he basically tries to help her up, but, Park is like driving by while this is going on, and he basically gets out of the car and does the famous Song Kang-ho kick.
Okay, I need to talk about this. I just found that out. Apparently, that was improvised.
Oh shit, was it?
Like, he was supposed to go, like, get into, like, a scuffle with him, but he's like, I'm just gonna jump and fucking kick him. And I just love it, because I talk about that all the time. And it's just so funny that so that guy just wasn't expecting to be fucking kicked by him.
Oh man, that's great. I love that.
I think it's closer, the pronunciation's closer to so. So or so. Just say Detective So.
Okay. Okay, so basically...
from Seoul.
Yeah, So from Seoul. So, he begins to arrest So, and then So's like, I'm a detective. And he's like, wait, you're a fucking detective? So they start writing back to the office, but before they do that, Park gets out and he finds a footprint that matches up with one of Kwang Ho's like sneakers. So he's like, aha, I got the bastard. He thinks this is like tangible evidence that it was him. So he basically goes back to the office, and then they like introduce him to the chief, who's like, oh, we've got a desk over here by the window for you. And he's like, I'd rather work in that corner over there. And they're like, oh, okay. Whatever you want, dude. But then they go down.
Cool, man.
And it's back in the interrogation room with Gwangju, and they're like eating lunch and watching TV. And then they're like, as soon as he kind of like starts talking about, like, he's like, oh, I need to talk to my dad. I used to watch the show with my dad. They're like, all right, he's getting out of line. Let's get back to it. So they take him out to the woods.
Start kicking him again.
Huh?
Start kicking him again.
Yeah, so they take him out to the woods where they try to have him dig his own grave, but he's not very good at digging. So I think Cho takes over for him.
Yeah, Cho takes over. He's like, you gotta dig like this!
Yeah, and basically there they like set up a tape recorder and begin taping his confession. And we get looks from Detective So, who is basically kind of like shaking his head. He thinks that this whole confession is like pre-rehearsed, and they're just like basically forcing him to admit to a murder he didn't commit. But he kind of just like scoffs and walks away at the end when because he describes the murder in detail, and then he gets to a point where they're like, he's basically describing, he's like, well, I took her clothes and I put it back on, and they're like, why did you do this? And he's like, well, how would I know? And then he gets the boot again, he gets kicked. So yeah, they were unable to get a proper confession out of him, but they were going to take it as evidence anyway, and they begin doing this like reenactment. I guess I don't know if this is like a Bong Joon-ho exclusive thing, or if this is something they like do in South Korea.
Yeah, they do it in both this and Mother.
Yeah, which is why
I'm not sure. I tried to look it up. I couldn't really find anything, but like maybe it's real. I don't know.
Yeah, but basically, like, both in this and Mother, they'll have like the murder suspect come, and they'll have like a mock situation where they basically try to reenact the crime scene and see if it lines up. It seems more like a public event than it does like to see if it matches up, but I don't know. I couldn't say for certain. Anyway, so basically during this, shortly before, Detective So had realized that he has webbed fingers and was very unlikely that he would be able to tie the types of knots that were found on the victim. So he basically is confronting the chief in this scene. He's like, look, I don't think this is the killer. I think we're about to make fools of ourselves. And he's like, no, shut up. I won't have any of this. We've got a confession from the boy. And then his like dad shows up and he begins freaking out. And it's just like this, they begin like beating up on him in public and like dragging him away. And it's like this huge public mockery. And this leads to basically a higher up being sent to kind of check things out for them. He shows up and he's very displeased with what he sees. In this also kind of cartoonish scene where basically Detective Park is trying to explain with like this kind of like, he's got like a chart set up and he's got like this big pad of paper and he's trying to flip the page, but he won't do it with his hand. He's got like this big stick and he's trying to like maneuver it behind the page and like lift it without obviously like overdoing it, but it's just funny. Meanwhile, Detective Cho is like over and he's like falling asleep and the higher up can see all of this. So they basically go out to the scene where they found the first body in the drainage pipe out in the like field. And it is there where Detective So reveals, he's like, look, there are 3 missing people, or 3 victims. And they're like, what? There's only 2. And he's like, no, there's 3. We just haven't found the other one yet. And he kind of explains, he's like, look, this person went missing in this area. You give me like X amount of police and I will find this person. I promise. And then he's like, all right, your logic seems to check out here. You seem more competent than these fools. So I'll give it to you.
Idiots.
So they conduct a search and they find her pretty quickly. The body's deteriorated, and they find like semen, but it's like so old that they can't like determine the blood type or anything from it. So it's pretty much useless. But they found the third victim. And I think, let me see, look at my notes. Oh yeah, so to celebrate this, they go to the restaurant owned by Gwangju-ho's family. They try to apologize to him by giving him a pair of rip-off Nikes, which are
nice. Nice Nike, what's the difference?
Yeah, who cares? They're good shoes. And he seems pretty okay with it, but then Cho kind of starts like lightly bullying him. He takes like the shoe away and he's like, look, I was beating up on you because I care about you, see? And he's really having none of that. He pretty much just grabs the shoes and runs away at that point. Then there's like a karaoke scene. Park does this like karaoke song. And then
I love that scene.
Yeah.
I just love it when Song Kang-ho sings in movies for no reason.
It's
he
great.
does in Secret Sunshine.
Yeah. The karaoke scene in that. I forgot about that.
He's just in his underwear singing.
Oh, yeah. But basically, yeah, they're all getting drunk there, and Park and Detective So have this conversation kind of about the position of the police and the detective work in South Korea. Basically, Park's point of view is that, like, America overanalyzes stuff because they live on, like, such a big piece of land that they kind of have to. But his argument is that, like, South Korea is so small that it should rely on more kind of traditional folksy ways of handling things. And that, that Detective So's, like, kind of initiative and his, methodology is more well suited for, like, the big American land. And, basically Detective So's having none of it. He's like, what? This is stupid. Shut up. And then they begin fighting, and then I love this scene. The police chief is just kind of like comes to, because he's like been asleep in the background. He kind of like reaches outwards, and they like hand him like a bucket, and he like pukes into it, and then he just starts yelling at both of them. He's like, "Look, get your shit together. We need to figure this shit out. We need to be preemptive. We know he kills during the rain, so we'll just we gotta move forward and launch an attack or whatever. And by the way, don't fight each other. If you two fight in front of me again, I'm gonna kill both of you."
I really love this scene. I can't remember. I know I've talked about it on the podcast or with you. Have you seen the Memories of Murder video by Every Frame a Painting from like 4 years ago?
I have seen it, yes.
They specifically talk about ensemble staging because this movie's really good at it. Like the scene in which they're digging the grave, and in the back you can see, so like in most of the scenes there's multiple like stories going on, and this is another one of those examples because you can see the detective or the police chief in the back, like, you know, losing it, and then they're in the front, and then even behind them you can obviously see like stuff moving because fucking Cho's back there making out with a woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really like the framing of this scene.
Is that the same episode where they talk about Akira Kurosawa's The Bad Sleep Well, or was that like, or was this episode? Because I remember them talking about like blocking, and that they used like a scene from that movie, which I haven't seen that movie, but it was a pretty decent scene what they were showing me, and it had like it wasn't necessarily like ensemble blocking, but it was like kind of like expressing story through blocking, because like you could tell by like the character's body language and where established things were in the room, kind of like what the character's thinking during that scene. But I digress.
I think he mostly just talks about Memories of Murder. Like,
yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, he might have done.
But Akira Kurosawa's like one of the masters of ensemble staging and blocking. It's like, what the fuck? Like, I remember we talked about it on his episode. I talked about it specifically with Ran and, what was it, High and Low?
Yeah.
I keep thinking about that High and Low
Yeah, there's some stuff in Mother. I don't know if it's just like the, just kind of like the hill kind of view that they had of like the city, but like that reminded me a lot of like the cityscape from like High and Low. But yeah, so let's see. Let me scroll down a bit here on my notes. So basically they're conducting like a search in the rain. They've got like a woman out there like wearing all red, and she's walking in the rain, and they're kind of like scouting her out. But eventually they end up like pulling aside into a room. There's a couple like middle schoolers who are out, so they're like, hey, you know, come chill in here from the rain from a bit. It's not safe to be out. And while the like girls are in there, they learn of this like kind of school urban legend they have about an outhouse that's
about
at their
the guy
school.
who lives in the fucking outhouse.
Yeah, and they're like, there's a man who lives in the outhouse, and he comes out at night and kills women. And then they also bring up like the crying woman. But basically they kind of dismiss it at this point. They're like, whatever, like children fables. But let's see. While this is going on simultaneously, we're following like a woman who's being stalked by the killer, and she ends up.
Is this the scene? She's walking to the factory.
Yeah, and she like
this is the point in the movie where like this scene in particular I find to be like super fucking tense.
Oh yeah,
I think it's just because tall grass has always scared me, because there was a lot of like tall grass growing up in Hawaii and stuff like that. So it was like, I'm gonna die. But also like that there's a part where you visibly see the head of the killer pop out of the grass and then go back down. And I remember the first time I was watching that, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where it's like, ooh, yeah, she didn't see that. But she knows he's there. So basically she's walking around and she's like singing to herself, and then she hears like a twig snap or the grass rustle.
Well, no, she hears somebody whistling to the tune as well first.
Oh, okay.
And that's when she suddenly stops. And she's just like looking around.
I didn't hear that part. The audio on my copy was a little quiet, but
no, that's the whistling really adds to the fucking anxiousness of the scene, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
because you just suddenly are like,
it's just like, oh shit.
So she's like, so then she like starts looking at the factory because it's pretty close to her, and then she just starts running.
Yeah, and the killer follows her and gets her.
The killer jumps out of the bushes, and the scene ends.
Yeah.
We don't really see his face. We see that it's a person. We know it's not a ghost at this point.
Yeah, there's a little too much like motion blur on him for us to make it out clearly who it is.
And like we see like her flashlight on him, so it's like,
yeah. So yeah, so basically the next day, the assistant there points out that she listens to like this radio station where like every night that somebody's been murdered, somebody has requested a specific song. And they're like, oh, what? And Park's like, come on. I had this awesome theory about the person being bald down there. And they're like, shut up. This is some actual tangible evidence. So, Park then goes and kind of like just spends his day in like a sauna, kind of like checking people out to see if there's any like people who are bald down there. Because he's like, the killer hasn't left behind any hair. He must be bald. But
he's like trying at this point. At this point, he's really like trying. He's coming up with ideas, but they're all just so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, if they're bald, how are we gonna figure that out? Are we gonna just pull up to every guy on the street and go, take off your pants? And then it just cuts to Song Kang-ho like doing his own investigation, where he's just like at a sauna. He's just like staring at guys' dicks as they walk past.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bit of an underlying homosexuality with his character in this movie for sure. Because there's another scene earlier in the movie where he's driving with what's the Cho? He's driving with Cho, and he's like, I think they're talking about like someone. I can't remember if it's one of the victims or not, but he's like, oh, you think she's attractive? And he kind of like starts feeling around down there, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to see if you're hard. And he's like, what? It's like, okay. But let's see. Oh yeah. So basically they go to the site of the body, and they see they're able to conduct a much more they're able to like maintain the crime scene. They don't have a bunch of people walking all over. They're able to keep it somewhat controlled, and they get a footprint, and they're like, oh yeah, but that's all they get. And then they kind of go to investigate the postcard that's sent to the radio station, but the radio station's very unhelpful. They're like, you know how many postcards we get? And basically kind of sends them on their way. So yeah, at this point, Detective So goes to the school because he's like, I'm trying. Oh wait, no, I skipped a part. Anyway, sorry if my parents are kind of loud right now.
I cannot hear them.
Okay, good. Hopefully it's not getting picked up on the Audacity. So... Let's see... Oh, basically, so... All three of them end up back at the scene of the crime later that night. They're, like, scouting it out for different reasons. Park had gone and seen, like, a shaman who recommended that he, like... He like pours liquid on something. I don't know. It wasn't super relevant to the movie, but basically he's out there doing that with Detective Cho, and then they hide when they hear someone's coming, and then we see Detective So is shown up, and then he hides because he hears someone is coming, and then we see this like factory worker kind of walk up, and he kind of like lays out like a bra and underwear on the ground and starts like jerking off in front of it, and they're like, what the fuck? And
they're like, what?
And it seems like Detective Cho is about to like go over there, but he ends up stepping on a twig. He's wearing those stupid boots, and then the guy like hears it, and then he like runs, and he was wearing like women's underwear, by the way, too, like a pink pair, which will become very important in this next scene. So they basically chase him around. This
shot, they all come out, and the fucking So looks at the other two as they're running, and he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
and then they're like, there's this fun shot where they're all running, and they all jump over something in unison.
Yeah. But they basically chase this guy. They lose him a couple times, but they find him, and then he kind of like wanders into the factory, and he blends in with the crowd because they're all wearing like the same black jumpsuit. And as they're like kind of like looking around, Detective Park notices the pink underwear. And he's like, And he kind of like, he's like, okay. So he's like, I'm going to play this off. So he goes over to Detective Cho, and he's like, hey, get that group of guys over there. Like, get them to stand together in a group, and we're gonna go and interrogate them. So he gets them all together in like a group, and then he does like the thing where he goes up to the guy, and he like just picks him out of the crowd and looks him straight in the eyes, and he's like, yeah, this is the guy. And Detective So goes over, and he sees the underwear and kind of confirms this, and he kind of gives like, he kind of turns around and gives this like bewildered look over to Detective Park, who's just like, oh yeah, that's right, I can read people with my eyes. Because he has this thing where he's like, earlier in the film, I don't know if we mentioned this, but he like stares at pictures of people, and he's like, if I look into someone's eyes long enough, I can figure them out.
Evil, yeah, pretty much.
So,
and like at this point, you realize that okay, maybe he does have really good perception at the very least.
Yeah, like he
can pick. He does notice things. And I think that's shows like okay, I get it. Because when he first got to town and throughout this whole thing, he had like no respect for Park because he's like, you can't do anything right. But now he's like, okay, maybe he can do one thing right.
Yeah. So, they detain this guy and they hold him for like 4 days without a warrant. And they're obviously like torturing him in there. And this sparks protests against the police department in the film. So the chief is very, very adamant. He's like, God damn it, our public image is down even more. How can that possibly happen? While this is going on, Detective So goes to the school because while this guy is detained, he basically describes a story where he like dreamed of the murder and he woke up and he was like at the bottom of like the outhouse. And he came out and he like was covered in shit. So that's kind of where like I think that myth comes from. Or he was just like referencing it and it's like, how do you know about that? And he's like, oh, everybody knows about it. But basically this sparks a flame in Detective So and he's like, all right. So he goes to this school and he finds one of the girls that he had met in the rain earlier. And he kind of asks her about it. She like hurt herself during like this practice thing that they do where they like have people like fall into like chutes and they like carry them off. It's like a simulation kind of thing. But there was like a rock in this chute and she got like a kind of puncture on her back. So he like band-aids that up for her since the nurse is missing. He's like, all right, tell me what you know. She's like, I don't know shit, dude. Just go check out the outhouse for yourself. And he's like, oh, okay. So he goes and he does that, and there he scares the shit out of a staff worker, who then tells him about the woman who cries on the hill. She basically is like, oh yeah, I've heard it from the outhouse. There's like a woman who cries on the hill over there. It's kind of weird, but yeah, it's whatever. So he goes and he checks it out, and we find out that she is a living victim of the killer / rapist.
The killer. Yeah.
So they basically get her to kind of like give her side of the story. And basically she was allowed to live because she knew that if she like looked at this guy's face, he was going to kill her. So she just kind of like shut her eyes and just kind of took it because she evaluated that was like her best approach to the situation. And she notes that the killer had like extremely soft and gentle hands because he had like put a hand over her mouth to like keep her quiet because like somebody was walking by at some point. So this is like a key factor in Detective So's mind from this point on. So he basically goes back to the police station and he looks at the guy's hands who they've got in custody and he's like, this guy didn't commit the murder. And he's like, did you commit the murder? And the dude's like, yes. And he's like, shut up. No, you didn't. So he basically goes out, and the fact that he's like basically announcing that they're wrong, this is not the killer, this upsets Park because he had felt pride in his ability to catch this guy, and he doesn't want it to be in vain. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, of course this is the killer. He came back to the scene of crime and masturbated, but they're like, no, this is not the killer. And basically, they begin fighting, and then the chief comes out and sees that they're fighting. He's like, oh, God damn it. And he picks up a chair and
fucking picks up a chair. He's like, ah! And then suddenly the girl in the back, the assistant or what?
Yeah.
I don't... is she just a regular police officer? I'm not sure, but she just goes, ah!
Yeah, I got the impression that she... like an operator, kind of.
Like, something like that.
Like someone who... She seemed kind of like a secretary character. They never really... She wasn't beating up on people, so, she wasn't a real cop. So, yeah, she's like, guys, stop! The radio! And they see that the song is playing, and then they, Detective So goes over to the window and he sticks his hand out and he sees that it's raining and he's like, oh shit. So, yeah, basically the chief goes over and he calls his higher ups and he's like, we need to declare like an emergency. We need to get like police officers all over the place, and they're unable to spare any because there are student protests going on. And they're more focused on crushing them instead of finding this killer and stopping him from murdering an innocent woman. So the next morning, immediately we see that they find the woman. And during the autopsy, they pull 9 pieces of fruit out of her. Pretty graphic. They go to the radio station and they find the postcard. They're able to get there quick enough to where they can get it this time. And they find the address of a man named Hyun-gun, or Hyun-gu, is that how you pronounce it?
Park Hyun-go, I believe.
Okay, Hyun-go. So...
No, Hyun-gu. Gyu.
Gyu? Okay.
Hyun-gyu, yeah. Park Hyun-gyu.
Okay. So basically, this man kind of fits their ideas that they've kind of built up so far. He's like a very, like kind of petite guy. He's got like very,
soft hands.
Soft hands. That's
he works at the factory, which is nearby.
He started working there like shortly before the murders began taking place. So they're basically like, oh yeah, basically everyone there is like, this is the guy, but they don't want another, public smear on them. So they're trying not to, take their usual approach with this one. But, Detective Cho decides to, give him a kick despite the explicit orders not to. So this basically leads to him, for all intents and purposes, he's not fired, but he's pretty much demoted at this point. He's like kicked down the stairs and he's told he's not allowed in the interrogation room anymore. And yeah, so he's pretty much, he's got like one more thing in the movie, but he's pretty much done with his policing at this point. So yeah. He doesn't own up to any of the murders, and, yeah, so basically, Detective So wants to book this guy despite the evidence, and, Detective Park even acknowledges, he's like, oh wow, you've changed since you've gotten here, like, you would have never said this when you first arrived.
Yeah, yep, he says that, is this the part, I think he says that, specifically, like, at this point, he's like, whatever, just fucking, evidence doesn't matter.
Yeah, he said, what?
Which is, like, the opposite of what he had said, like, an hour before.
Yeah. But basically, they're like, oh man, we just need a witness. Like, that's the missing factor here. And then they kind of start talking about, Gwangju-ho again. And they're like, he's like, oh man, too bad that, you guys had staged that, rehearsed that confession that he did. And he's like, oh, we didn't rehearse anything. He's like, well, how did he know all those specific details? And Detective Park's like, that's what I've been saying this whole time. And then they both kind of come to the conclusion that he was not the one who, did the murdering, but he was witness to it since he knew all these like explicit details that wouldn't be known to the public at that point. So so they go to his restaurant to find him. But instead of finding him there, they find Detective Cho, who is getting drunk and harassing a bunch of just...
Well, at first he's not. He's literally just he's just hanging out with himself, but he's very drunk.
Yeah.
And then he goes over to the TV, and like turns the channel or something, and meanwhile he can hear like these students by him talking, like making fun of the detectives. They obviously don't know who he is, but
yeah,
they're making fun of him. And then he walks over and just fucking like slams a guy's head into the fucking table.
Yeah, he begins just ferociously kind of attacking everyone in there. And, Detective Park and Detective So are trying to stop him, but the people in the restaurant are like grabbing them, thinking that they're trying to get involved in a fight too. And it's like, no, we're trying to subdue him, calm him down. But basically, Gwangju shows up and he begins freaking out. So he picks up like this plank of wood that has a nail sticking out of it and just whacks Detective Cho in the leg. And then he flees because Detective Cho is obviously going to have a violent reaction to that. So Detective So and Detective Park like follow him, and he like climbs up like this telephone pole, and they're like, "Hey, we just want to talk to you." And he's like, "No, you're going to kill me if I come down." It's like, "All right, well, you don't necessarily have to come down. We just have some questions for you." And they basically like ask him, and it's like, "Okay, we figured out that you saw the murder. Did you see the killer's face?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I saw the killer's face." And then the people from the restaurant show up and they're like attacking them and like, no, we're cops. And like, the likely story. But they manage to like squeeze away. Gwangju is like run away again. And they like finally catch up with him. And they're like, is this the guy? Is this the guy? But he runs away some more. And then he ends up running onto some train tracks while Detective So is still kind of dealing with the people from the restaurant. Detective Park goes over to try and get him off the train tracks, but the kid's just like, stay away. And then
like this train track's like on the top of this like kind of like slope that Detective Park's like trying to get up, but he's like, it's taking a while. And then he gets up right in time for the fucking train to fucking just destroy Gwangju.
Yeah. So
and Song Kang-ho's just covered in blood, and he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of South Korean movies where people get hit by trains.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly like a dramatic spectacle, that's for sure. But yeah, so, let's see. So basically, they're back to the same spot that they were before. They were able to, I think they got like semen samples from the latest like victim they had found with the fruit. So they sent that. They don't have the forensic technology that they need in South Korea, so they had to like send it to America along with the fingerprints of Hyungu, and they're basically waiting for the results. Meanwhile, Detective So is like, "Oh, fuck, I want to arrest this guy now." And the chief's like, "No, we can't. Like, no more just arresting people. Like, we need solid evidence this time, or else we're not gonna, like, survive.
We're not gonna have jobs."
Yeah. So,
did we say that Cho's leg got amputated?
I was just about to get to that, yeah. So, basically, yeah, Cho's leg's not looking good, so they have to have it amputated.
Cosmic justice right there.
Yeah.
Kicking people all movie. No more leg for you.
Yeah, there's a scene, like, after it happens, because Detective Park is, like, the one who has to kind of, like, sign the okay form, seeing how Detective Cho doesn't really have any, like, relatives or anything, seemingly. And while he's back at, like, the police office, we see him, like, looking at the pair of, like, boots, one of which has the, like, the cover on it, and he's just kind of, like, looks defeated. So, while this is going on, Detective So has been following Hyun and loses him. And there's like the scene where he's like watching him at like this cafe, and we see that they like make eye contact for a second, and then he leaves. Meanwhile, Detective So's car won't start. So this is where he goes and he pleads with the chief. He's like, "Come on, we gotta arrest him." And the chief's like, "No." So that night we see that the girl that he had, like, given the Band-Aid earlier and who he had, like, met in the rain earlier, she is taken by the killer. He just kind of comes out of the bushes and sweeps her up. And we see, like, the scene where he's basically, like, tying her up, and we see that she's, like, looking at his face. So that kind of seals her fate. And yeah, so the next morning, they find the crime scene, and it's brutal. Like, everyone there is just fucking...
It's raining. Everyone's there. Like, they're people from the school there. Like, everyone's there. And
yeah, there's like...
This scene's so fucking good, though. Holy shit.
There's like a media camera guy who's just like up right behind the people who are like checking out the body. And Detective So kind of goes up and he kind of pushes the camera away and he covers up the body because they're like, oh, we found something inside of her. And it seems like they're about to do that all there. And it's like, no, save that for the autopsy tape. Why are you doing this in public? But, yeah, so he basically kind of like covers up her body a little bit. And they're like, what are you doing touching a dead body? But he just kind of walks away and he goes like straight to Hyun-gu's place. And basically starts beating up on him and throwing him out. And they work their way over to some train tracks where Detective Park catches up with them. And he's like, hey, whoa, what's going on? Hey, I got the papers from America right here. Check them out. So he kind of goes over and starts beating up on the guy while Detective So goes over and he reads the papers. And the papers say it's like, oh, it's inconclusive. We're unable to say whether it is or not. Maybe. It's not like off the table, but we can't like say with certainty that it is. And basically he's just like, God damn it. God fucking damn it. And he pulls his gun out. He's about to shoot this guy. And Detective Park's like, oh, whoa. What are you doing?
He's like holding the gun. He's staring his eyes. He's like, I can't figure it out.
Yeah, so he like pushes the gun down and he like grabs the dude by the face and is just like staring in his eyes. And he's like, I don't know. I just don't fucking know. Cause like, obviously the dude has some malice in his eyes. And it's hard to tell if it's like the malice of a serial killer who doesn't want to be caught and is just kind of like playing his angry card, or if it's like just some like student who feels that he's being targeted by the police unfairly and is willing to like give them like an attitude about it and not stand down. And it's really hard to tell. Like, it's just like, oh God. So he's just like, fuck. And they see that a train is coming. So he makes the decision. He's like, if I don't do this, he's gonna, Detective So is gonna fucking kill this guy. So he pushes him on the opposite side of the train tracks while the train passes by. And then as the train passes by, we see that he's like began running into the train tunnel. And Detective So decides to take like a few shots at him, but he misses. Like some ricochet like bounces off the walls and he like hits the ground for a second and you're like, oh, but he gets back up and he seems fine and begins running away again, still in his handcuffs. But yeah, so yeah, that scene's so fucking great. I love that scene.
Yeah. Then the final scene's also really good.
Yes. So basically,
so it cuts to present day, at least for when the
2003.
fucking 2003.
And up until this point, when this movie was like, I know the murders took place from like 89 to 94. I don't know if the movie covers that span.
I think it's probably like towards the earlier 86.
Part. 86? Oh, okay.
Yeah. 86, maybe 87. Like, I know it starts in 86. I don't know how long it lasts. So maybe it gets to 87. I'm not sure.
Okay. But, so basically we see years later, he's walked away from the police business. He's like a traveling salesman now. And, after we wrap this up, I'm gonna have to take a break because There's a shower going on. And
Cool.
it's gonna be loud. Yep, there it is. Okay, so basically, traveling salesman, he's passing by the area where they found the first body, and he basically, like, has his driver pull over. He goes out and he kind of just looks in the drainage pipe and kind of sits for a minute. And this kid walks up and she's like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just checking it out." And she's like, "That's weird. Someone else was here and checking this out not too long ago." And he's like, "What? Really? What'd they say?" And they were like, "Oh, they said that they had done something here a long time ago and they were just coming by to, like, see." And it was just like, he's like, "Oh, well, do you remember this person's face?" And it's a little kid, so they're just like, kind of plain. It's like, "Hey, can you be more specific?" And she's just like, "Kind of ordinary." And then Detective Park basically just gives this long, just defeated look into the camera. And then, that's it.
So that's actually not necessarily supposed to be a defeated look.
Yeah, more of...
It's supposed to be a confrontational look. So the idea of this last scene was to be like, it could be anyone, is to be like, Bong Joon-ho was convinced in his mind that the serial killer would be watching. So he wanted that final look to be like, "I'm coming for you."
I see.
To be like, "I'm gonna fucking get..."
Yeah, and while the film didn't directly catch the killer, it definitely contributed towards keeping the case relevant and in the public consciousness.
Definitely true.
And I was reading, apparently this film had also impacted the way that they handled, like, kind of forensic situations in South Korea. I don't know, like, it was just some article I was reading. I don't know the credibility behind it, but I think that's neat. It's like, oh, so this film had its impact, and it's still regarded as, like, his greatest film by a lot of people.
Yeah, it's funny, because I feel like Bong Joon-ho's, like, it's actually pretty bizarre that, like, he has, like, 5 films where people are like, "That's his best film."
Yeah.
Or, like, 4. I feel like it's mostly usually... I heard Mother a lot, actually, but Mother, Memories of Murder, and Parasite are usually the ones that are like, "Dude, it's his best film."
Yeah, my top 2 are this and Parasite. I feel like those are his 2 strongest. I really like his other films, but I feel like they're, like, not... I don't want to say, like, they're below the like, level of these films, but they're different. They go for, like, a different thing, but kind of the same thing at the same time. That he has, like, the common themes he works with.
Yeah.
But,
Alright, so we're gonna take a break, and then when we get back, we'll talk about more Memories of Murder just to wrap up, and then talk about Mother.
Yep.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Hello, welcome back to the greatest podcast on Earth. We were talking about Memories of Murder, the greatest movie on Earth.
Yes.
Yeah, so real-life murderer was already actually in prison, and had been in prison since, like, 95, I want to say.
Yeah, like right around the time when the murders stopped.
I mean, I think the murders stopped,
Let me see. I didn't do a deep read on the page. I looked closely at it. Let's see. Not closely, but I kind of skimmed it.
Because the murders apparently stopped in 91, and he went to prison in 94 for a different murder, obviously, but, so there were, like, 2 years where he was chill, I guess. He stopped.
Huh.
A big thing to talk about with this movie is the like, Gwangju Riots and that stuff, because that was what was going on at this time.
Yeah.
And that was a big reason why they never caught him, because police resources were so thinned out because the government just wanted to suppress, like, protests and stuff. So murderers weren't being caught. So yeah, government sucks, police suck. Yeah, so, like, at one point, the police chief calls and is like, "I need you to send me, like, garrisons of men." And if they had done that, they would have caught him. But they just didn't have anyone to, like, help people, so...
Yeah,
that's he continued to kill.
Right before they find the woman with all the fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Really good movie. If you like that kind of, like the kind of protest angle to this story, and you like Song Kang-ho, the actor who played Park, I would highly recommend checking out A Taxi Driver. Also a really good movie. Yeah,
very good, very good.
Tackles that same kind of subject matter, just that different angle of it from this movie. But good. Yes.
So Bong Joon-ho, like, it took him a year to write the script. Because he finished it. He started pretty much right after Barking Dogs came out. But the first 6 months, even though he said he was, like, writing, he's like, nope, I didn't write a single line. I was just doing research for, like, 6 months straight.
I feel it.
Are you familiar with the comic book From Hell at all?
Is that the Matt Groening one?
It's the...
like the one with the rabbit?
It's the Alan Moore comic series. You know, Watchmen guy?
Yeah, I know who Alan Moore is. No, I guess not. Not the one I was thinking of. What am I thinking of?
I don't know.
Let me find out the name of that. Hell comic.
But, yeah.
Life in Hell is the name of the one I'm thinking of.
Oh. Bong Joon-ho has said that the script is, like, pretty heavily influenced by that comic series.
Oh, okay. Didn't they do a movie based off of it with Johnny Depp?
I think so, yes. I believe it's by the Hughes brothers.
Ah.
You love them. Let's see. From Hell. Yep, by Albert Hughes and Alan Hughes. Johnny Depp. Yep. Yep. Quentin Tarantino really likes this movie. Fun fact.
Yeah, I saw that on the Wikipedia page for it.
Yeah, this and the host, he's like, this is one of the best, those are like the best things ever made.
Yeah, they're two fucking phenomenal movies. Yeah. Let's see. I personally don't have much more to say about this.
Yeah, that's about it. It's amazing. It's an easy 10 for me.
Yeah, it's also a 10 for me, so.
Cool. Yeah. Go watch it.
You probably won't regret it. You might a little if you've got a weak stomach, but...
That's true.
It's a good movie. Alright, and on to... Not the follow-up to this movie, but it feels like a spiritual follow-up to this movie in a way. Because they both center around, like, murder. But, yeah, Mother. So... This is his fourth film?
Fourth, like, solo feature, because he did that anthology. But yes, fourth film. Right after The Host. Yes.
So, okay. This one follows an unnamed widow, the mother. So, she lives alone with her only son, whose name is, Yoon Do-jun? Is that, or Do-jun? Is that how you pronounce it? I think so.
Yes?
Okay.
Wait, no, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, her son, Do-jun, he's clearly got, like, a disability of some sort. He is, he seems to have, like, a memory issue. Like, he can't remember things very well. And he tends to have a short temper and will attack anyone who mocks his disability. But she's basically, like, the film begins with her It's one of those, like, kind of, like, cut forward, then we'll get back to it later in the movie, but there's a scene where we see the mother, she's in a field, and she's dancing. And then we kind of, like, jump back to the beginning here, when she is, she's basically, like, cutting some medicinal herbs. She's, like, working in this little shop. And basically, she's watching her son across the street, and he gets, like, hit by a car. He's fine. He doesn't seem hurt by it. Maybe a couple scratches or bruises or whatever, but he seems to be, for the most part, doing pretty well. But she goes over. She's frantic. She's like, "Oh, God, are you okay?" But he's just like, stop. I need to go chase this guy. So he goes and he chases that car with his friend, Jin-tae, who's like this local thug kind of character. So they follow it. It's a Benz that hits him, so they're like, oh, where else is a Benz going other than the country club? So they go to the country club, and they find the car, and Jin-tae, like, smashes one of the window, or the mirrors to it. And, Do-jun tries, but he kind of, like, misses the mirror and just kind of ends up, like, falling on the ground. So they decide to scout out the area, wait for a little while for whoever owns the Benz. While this is going on, we see Do-jun, he's, like, down in the water, and he's basically just collecting, like, golf balls that are lost in there. And it's here where we get a pretty weird piece of dialogue. Basically, Jin-tae questions, like, if Do-jun has ever been with a woman. He's like, oh yeah, I've been with a woman. He's like, yeah, who have you slept with? And he's like, my mother. And it's just like, what? Yeah, but he kind of brushes it off. He's like, oh, whatever. The people who hit you are coming. We need to focus on that. So they basically, like, hide in some bushes and try to, like, have this ambush where they initially send out Do-jun, but he kind of just stands there awkwardly, and then he ends up, like, going back into the bushes where Jin-tae kind of yells at him. So Jin-tae takes the stick that he had and basically, like, chases them down. He begins yelling at him. He attacks some of the men. He ends up, like, stealing one of their golf clubs, because obviously they pull out their golf clubs as a defensive item, so he just grabs one of them as to fight back. But he ends up tossing it into the lake, and they don't seem to notice. But he basically, yeah, they get into the scuffle, and then the police show up and arrest them. And yeah, basically, they're like, all right, well, you got hit by the car. It was a hit and run. But then you guys came and attacked these guys. So that basically levels it out. No charges pressed, no hard feelings, nothing. But then the dude's like, yeah, but what about the mirror on my car? They totally busted that. And
then Jin-tae immediately blames his friend.
Yeah, he's like, oh, Do-jun, how dare you do that? And he's like, fuck, why did I do that? And so he gets stuck with the bill for that. Even though I would have been like, no, maybe that was from when you hit me with your car, asshole. But, yeah, so his mother, like, shows up right then, and she's, like, passing around, like, juices or something to, like, everyone at the police station.
Yeah.
But, so, basically, yeah, they're having, like, dinner, and his mother's like, why? Why did you, like, smash the mirror? And he's like, I don't know. She's like, you need to stop hanging out with that Jin-tae. He's, like, a bad influence on you. And he's like, okay, fine. And then he gets up, and she's like, where are you going? He's like, I'm gonna go meet up with Jin-tae. And she's like, ugh. So, he goes out, and we see that he's just... go. Yeah. So he goes to a bar where he's, like, kind of drunk asleep with this, like, woman who's sharing a booth. But she kind of, like, ends up just... She's like, I thought you said Jin-tae was coming. He's like, he's supposed to come. But she kind of gets fed up and just walks over to the next booth and sits with those guys instead. And then he's there for a little while. And then he starts kind of hitting on this, like, restaurant's daughter. Because she, like, comes through. And she's, like, flirting with him. And he's, like, flirting back. And then the mother's just like, stop, get out of here, you creep. So he leaves, and he's drunk and on the prowl for a woman, and he ends up following this one woman for a little bit, and her name is, let me jump down, because I don't remember it off the top of my head, Moon Ah-jung, I think that's how you pronounce it, but, he ends up following this girl around for a little bit, and he's just like, oh, what's the matter, huh? You don't like guys? Why are you ignoring me? And she ends up, like, sidestepping into a building after she turns a corner because this drunken guy is following her and harassing her, so she decides to hide. And he's walking by, and he's like, it must have went in there, and he kind of, like, walks up the steps a little bit, and then we see a rock come out and, like, land kind of, like, directly in front of him, which startles him. And we see him kind of, like, look into the room for a minute, and then we cut. And then we see him coming home. It's super late. He decides to lie in bed with his mother and cop a feel. It's just like, oh, gross.
Yep.
Yeah. So, the next morning, the police discover her dead body just on the rooftop. This pressures the police to find the killer, and they find that he was they basically figure out that he was following her, and they find one of his golf balls that he signed at the scene of the crime. And we had seen that he was, like, throwing them around earlier, like he threw one through, like, a window before he started chasing the girl, so it's planting seeds of doubt that he is the one who may have not killed her. So, basically, the police arrest him. The mother is, like, getting yelled at by her boss when this happens, and then she ends up, like, following him down the street after he's, like, put into the cop car, and then the police aren't paying attention while they're driving, and they end up getting hit by a car. And, it makes for this dramatic scene where, like, even though the car crashed, his mother, like, comes up to the window and is, like, looking in. She kind of, like, makes her way through the crowd, and she shows up at the window just in time to see the policeman throw the cuffs on him. So, she hires a lawyer because she's like, well, clearly my son didn't do this. So she hires a lawyer, and he's pretty unhelpful. He basically shows up for a couple minutes and kind of sees the situation. She's basically like, do you remember anything from that night? He's like, oh, I just remembered. And she's like, what did you remember? And he's like, it wasn't me who broke the window, it was Jin Tae. Oh, how dare he blame me for that? And she's like, oh, that boy Jin Tae. And the lawyer's just like, all right, this is a dead end. I'm leaving.
I'm out of here. He's out. He's just like, I'm going. Bye.
So she goes and basically stalks Jin Tae. Like, she finds his house and goes inside and like hides in the closet because she finds a golf club with kind of like red mark on it that she thinks is blood, and she's like, ooh. So she hides in the closet, and then Jin Tae and this girl come in. Is this the girl that was in that scene earlier, or is this a different girl? It kind of looked like the girl from the restaurant to me, but it might not have been. But he shows up with this girl, and basically they're just...
I don't remember if it's the same girl or not.
But basically, he's fucking around with this girl. She's in the closet. They fall asleep. And then she kind of like slowly tiptoes out and is able to get out without waking him up. And she like knocks over like a bottle of water. And she's like, ugh! But he manages to not be woken up by it. But as soon as she gets out of the door, he wakes up and comes out. And he's got like clothes on a clothesline. So he's like putting on a shirt and she's just kind of like hiding at the base of this hill that's like right there. And then we see her put a glove over like the top of the golf club, and it's raining, so she's basically like walking to the police station where she's like, I need to talk to this sergeant or whatever. So Jin-tae shows up and he's obviously not very pleased with what just happened. He explains, he's like, hey, look, they gave it to me after the whole ordeal at the country club, and he shows like a video of like basically the girl that he was with. She's like singing into the golf club like it's a microphone, and she gets some of her lipstick on it, and that's what was on the golf club. So the mother, feeling somewhat humiliated, is walking from the police station. She refuses to accept an umbrella from one of the policemen. And it's here where she buys an umbrella from like this local like junker. And yeah, that'll be a little important later.
That it will. A little.
A little. So
just a tiny bit.
I mean, not the umbrella, but the junker. Anyway.
No, the umbrella's the key ingredient to the whole story.
Let's see. It's here where basically she's picked up by, like, a man who was sent by her lawyer, and he's like, your lawyer wants to talk to you. So she goes, and they're at, like, this karaoke place. The lawyer's, like, drunk. He's been drinking with, some other people, like higher up people who are involved in the case, and he's like, look, we can get him like 4 years in a hospital, but that's like the best deal. This is like the best case scenario for this like case. And she's like, ugh. So she like, he's like offering her a drink, and she drinks some, and we see her like go home and throw up, and then she's like wandering through her house where we see Jin-tae is there, and she's like, oh shit. She's like, did you eat? He's like, what did I eat? What? I mean, I'm glad that you're asking, but I'm fine. By the way, what the hell? What was that earlier? And she's like, I'm sorry. I was following my intuition. I thought it was you. It's like, no, it wasn't me, and you should have to owe me money for like,
feel
smearing.
Bad, you fucking bitch.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I was saving this up to pay off my debts. And he's like, I don't care. Give me the money. So she gives him all the money that she has, and he's like, all right, this works for now. Just put the rest in my bank. But then he's basically like, look, I'm Do-jun's friend, and it definitely wasn't him who killed that person. We need to find the killer.
And she's like, what, you really feel about that? I'm so sorry that I did that.
Yeah. And he's like, it's fine. We'll go about this together. And it's clear that he doesn't really care. There was like a line earlier when she brought the lawyer to talk to him, and he brought up like he remembered that like Jin-tae destroyed the mirror. He's like, that bastard hasn't even come to visit me since I've been in here. So also something important that I feel we should bring up that I kind of skimmed over. There's a scene where the mother goes to like the wake of the girl who was murdered, and she basically tries to proclaim that her son is innocent, which causes everybody to be like, what the fuck? Get the fuck out of here, you stupid bitch. Even if that was the case, you don't present that here. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, so she ends up leaving there, and, so that happens. There's also a scene where they, like, do, like, before they send him to jail, they do that thing where they, like, do the reenactment and they, like, trick him into signing a confession.
Yep.
But yeah, so now we've mentioned those. I won't feel bad when they come up in context later. Yes. So basically she goes around and she starts asking, like, local kids and stuff about, what is her name? Again. Moon Ah-jun. Or Moon Ah-jun, yeah. So, so she starts asking people about her, and she kind of finds out that she had a bit of a reputation as a rice cake girl, which is like the you give her a rice cake and she'll fuck you kind of thing. So basically we find out that she kind of got around. And then we find out, because there's like this woman who like printed her picture for like some of like the funeral material, and the mother goes there and kind of like, she's like, oh, I want you to touch up a picture of my boy when he's young. He was an angel. And she's like, oh, you can tell that she's kind of creeped out. She's like, yeah, he was cute back then. But she kind of remembered. She's like, oh, wait, I remember the girl. And we find out basically that she had a friend who had like this scar on her face that would be like, they would go there to get like photoshopped out of pictures. And then we find out that she was also prone to nosebleeds. So.
Yep. Which will become important later.
That'll become relevant. So, yeah. Fuck. Where were we? So yeah, basically, she goes and she is able to get the phone from one of Mon Ah-jun's relatives, or Ah-jun's relatives.
Yep.
She goes to the relative and so this part I was a little like, what? She was like pretending that she talked to like her spirit. Is that what was going on?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, but she basically like kind of tricks one of Moon's like drunken relatives to give her the cell phone. And we find out, because there was the scene where she paid Jin-tae to help her interrogate some guys who were like harassing her friend in an alleyway, basically trying to figure out where this phone was, because she basically has this phone and on it is like a picture of like every guy she ever slept with, so it's like considered like blackmail to a lot of people. So there's like a lot of motivation for other people to have killed her. So she has the phone, she's able to like get the photos, and while this is going on, oh man, also some more stuff I forgot to bring up. So we see a scene where she had gone and visited her son, and he's like, I remembered something. She's like, oh great, what did you remember? And he's like, I remembered you tried to kill me when I was a little kid. She's like, oh!
She like freaks out then.
Yeah. And
because she probably had tried to forget that her entire life as well.
Yeah. So basically there was like a point where she tried to commit like suicide with the kid, but she had like, I forget what exactly it was. She put like some sort of like cleaning solution in their drinks, but it wasn't strong enough. She'd bought like a weaker brand, so it ended up just giving him like food poisoning and diarrhea for a couple days. But yeah, so she's like, oh shit, here, and she brings this up. I think this is the first time she brings it up in the movie, but she brings up, she's like, I know of this pressure point, because she's an unlicensed what do you call those people who are in that profession?
Puncturist.
Yes. Yep. So she does that unlicensed, but she's like, I know this acupuncture point that'll basically, it's in your thigh. I'm the only person that knows about it. It'll loosen the strings in your heart and help you forget. He's like, no, I don't want to talk to you ever again. So that happened earlier. So now that she has the phone, he's like thinking back, he's like rubbing his temples, and then he remembers. This part I find kind of corny. I don't really like this part. Because it shows like a flashback to like the night he's following her, and he like passes by a window, and like in it we see like that kind of like Blade Runner, like zoom focus onto like this particular corner and like through the window where we see the old junk collector that she had bought the umbrella from earlier in the movie. So he had seen him in there, I guess. And it's like, he remembers, so he's like, oh, that's him. So she's like, oh, I know this guy. So she goes and she confronts him. And there we learn the truth. He's like, oh yeah, I saw something a while back that really, really shook me to my core. And she's like, oh, what was that? He's like, well, you know that girl who was murdered, a couple weeks back? Well, the place where she was murdered, I was staying there that night. And, I witnessed the whole thing, and he describes basically that he saw her or that like he saw what happened. He describes that she called him the R word, and he got very upset, so he picked up that rock that she threw at him, because basically the scene goes like she threw the rock at him and she's like, you've heard of me, you've heard of my reputation. He's like, no. She's like, then what? What then? Get out of here. Yeah, effing R word. And then he's just like, and he has a
hurls the
temper
rock
issue.
Back at her, but hits her in the head.
And then she dies, and he's like, oh. So, so that's what happens. And then he describes more situations that it's like, oh yeah, it's absolutely him, because he says that he saw him like freaking out, and he does like that temple rubbing thing that he does when he tries to remember. The temples of doom, they call it. And then, yeah.
And then she's like, what? No, it can't be real. The police are going to let him go. They're going to reopen the investigation. And then it's obvious that he's like, well, then I should probably go tell them. And she like starts freaking out, and then fucking hits him in the head with...
It's like a wrench, isn't it?
Yeah, a wrench, I think. And then does it a couple more times, and then he's just fucking dead.
Yep. And then she freaks out. She tries cleaning it up a little bit, but then she's just like, fuck it, there's no cleaning this up. So she sets the place on fire. And then, she leaves, and the next day, the police detective shows up at her place, and you can see that she's worried, she's concerned, she's like, oh shit, they know I killed that man and burnt his place down. And they're like, he shows up and he looks pretty grim at first, but he's like, they're releasing your son. And she's like, wait, what? And they're like, oh yeah, we found her blood on some dude's shirt. So, he's clear. And then they're driving away. They're like driving her to him, and they're like, oh yeah, he said that like she got a nosebleed. And I admit it was quick thinking, but the evidence is stacked against him. And it's just like, and they're taking her to go meet with this person, because she's just like, they're like, why do you want to meet with him? She's like, I just have to. And it's here where we see that it's another disabled person, someone with Down syndrome, and she just starts like crying. She's just like, do you have a mother or a father or anyone? And he's like, no. And that makes her cry even harder.
Got him.
And then, yeah, she walks away. We see that her son gets out of jail. She doesn't go to pick him up. Jin Tae does. And then, and he's like eating at dinner at home, and he's basically, I think I know why the killer did, like, put the body up there like that. And she's like, why are you thinking of things like that? And he's like, well, my thought process is that he put her where someone could see her and help her sooner. And it's just like, oh my god. God damn it. What a stupid line of logic. But, so she's just like, oh god. So she feels bad, and then she's like going away on this like mother's trip, like mother's bus dance party. I don't know what this is.
It's like a trip for kind of like elderly people. It's like an elderly, like, kind of vacation retreat thing.
Yeah.
So she's going, everybody's fucking dancing on there, and she's, like, staring out the window.
Yeah, but before she goes, her son and Jin-tae had, like, driven by the place with the junker, and they were digging through the rummage, and he found her, like, amphipuncture set. So, yeah. So, she basically, like, takes it from him, and he's like, you can't leave stuff like this lying around. And she's just like, ugh, disgusted, and she gets on the bus, and we see that she's, like, looking around, she's sad, and, so she sticks the needle in her leg. I like this scene because it's, like, she never makes it clear if it's, like, a suicide thing that it does, because she says it, like, loosens the strains in your heart and helps you forget your troubles. And in this scene, she, gets up and starts dancing, and the camera work begins, like, it's shaking around. It's hard to, like, focus on her, and it almost looks like she's either dancing or she's, like, falling over through the crowd as she works her way up. But yeah, that's the end of the movie. Also, the dancing scene happened after she set the Junker's house on fire. I forgot to mention that, but iconic field dancing scene.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I do really like this movie, though. I think it's pretty great. I think it's one of my less. It's on the lower tier for me, but I really like it. It's one of Bong Joon-ho's favorite movies of his own.
Huh. I think out of what I've seen, so everything except for his first movie, this was my least favorite out of what I've seen. And I don't think it's bad or anything. It's just like, I don't know. I felt like it had the least to offer, and I also am. So I'm biased because I saw Poetry first, probably. And
I saw this before Poetry.
Okay. Not to, like, compare them too much, because they are different movies. They've just got kind of like a similar
vibe, similar themes.
Yeah. It's kind of like. It's almost like he saw this movie, Lee Chain-dong, and he was like, I want to make this movie, but I want to make it, a bit more depressing. And also have the angle where it's, for more of the film, spoiler alert for Poetry, the grandmother is not on the side of the, like, grandson who is clearly guilty. But it's both about, like, kind of like an older character who has to deal with their shitty, younger offspring.
Yeah, so what would you give the movie then?
I would give it an 8.
I would also. I agree with the similar thematic elements with Poetry, but I think they're both pretty great films.
Yeah, for sure. And
the central performances in both by the old ladies are great. Like, really, really good.
Absolutely.
This was, Bong Joon-ho had said that if the main character in this, if the actress hadn't said yes to the role, he wouldn't have made the film. Like, he wrote it around her, with her in mind.
Well, she did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for watching another episode. Next episode, we will be doing our top 50 films. It'll be crazy. It'll be great. It'll be jazzy.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching. Toodaloo.
Adios.